I want to take you on a start to finish journey with this cabinet. This actually was a desk that we cut down and just used the drawer portion to make a cute cabinet. So as you can see, there's a little bit of damage on the side where the prior desk parts were. So we're taking some Dixie Mud, which is a really great product that you can put on and fill holes, and they will just disappear, and then you can paint over. So I am adding it on with a putty knife. Dixie Mud is just an awesome product. I keep it in the refrigerator because if you don't, it can mold. So right there you can see that's where the desk was. I will put a before and after picture in the title so you can see what it looked like before. But you just let this stuff dry. Once it dries, it'll turn a lighter color, and then you just sand it smooth and paint over, and you will never ever know that there was any damage. There was a crack on the side of this one, so Dixie Mud is the best product to go ahead and seal up that crack. Just try to get a thin layer right into the hole of the crack, let it dry, sand it, it's all done. I actually had my sander out. I usually sand it by hand, but I just used it real quick since I had it already out. But the damage disappears. It's an amazing product. You guys will love it. That's Dixie Mud. That's by Dixie Belle. I do have it on my online website. So I am taking some dark blue paint. I know it kind of looks black. Any old chalk paint will do. The color is Stella Luna. This is by Miss Lillian's. And I am just using a variety of paint on this piece. Since I do retail about 6 different brands, I intermingle them all the time. So I will tell you the names, but really you can use any kind of chalk paint that you would like. I'm going to go ahead and lay down 2 coats. First coat's dry. Going to put the second coat. It is actually the same color. It's funny how much lighter blue it looks before it dries. That's going to be on our top. We're just going to put down 2 coats because I want there to be a really good base. We're going to do a funky technique on this thing. So I am taking some all-in-one paint. All-in-one paint has been really popular lately. There are a couple brands that I carry that have all-in-one paint. That would be Wise Owl, 1 Hour Enamel, and Dixie Belle Silk. They are paints that have built-in primers and top coats. The cool thing about those paints, and you don't have to use an all-in-one paint to do this part, but the reason that I like to use an all-in-one paint for this is that it cracks when you put salt wash with it. So salt wash is that powder additive that I add to make the paint really thick. It's also a great way to use texture on a piece. So I'm going to be adding a brick stencil on the side of this piece. I just thought I'd do something totally outside of the box. So I'm going to add a brick stencil on the side and just make it look different, right? Why not? I had this idea in my head and I thought this might be fun. So we're going to lay down a brick stencil. This is a Prima redesigned brick stencil. I do have these in stock. If they show out of stock on my website, check back in a few days because I am getting more in. I just sold a bunch this week. So this is just a brick stencil. I'm going to take some painter's tape, kind of tape it in place as much as I can. It's easier to maneuver if you actually can tape it in place, and just get it kind of lined up. It's just a guide. It's not a definitive kind of thing. This brick stencil is the same one that I used to do a brick wall with that's in my store. I do have a tutorial for that one too. So I mixed up a bunch of colors with salt wash and paint. What I'm going to do is take my trowel. I have a little mini trowel. It's super fun and easy to use for this type of technique. And I am just going to slap on some paint. And this is the paint that has the salt wash mixed into it. The reason I use that is because I wanted to have a super thick texture for the bricks. And I thought, well, maybe I'll use my putty knife. I actually went back to my my little what's that called? Blade, because it was a lot easier to use. So I just mixed up a bunch of colors. This is kind of a tan. I use a gray. I used a blue. Just a variety of colors. A kind of a light off-white gray, and just kind of sporadically put them down. Didn't really think much of the pattern. I wasn't trying to make a pattern. I'm not going to fill in the entire stencil. It's supposed to be messy. It's supposed to look like old plaster, okay? We're going to make it look like old plaster with all the layers that we're going to add. So stay tuned. Don't stop watching yet. This is one of those videos you're going to have to watch all the way through to get the whole entire look, the finished look. So we're just going to keep adding different colors. I'm not cleaning my trowel after every use. I'm just dipping it right into the paint. We're going to put so many layers on the top of this, it's not going to really matter. It doesn't matter if the white gets in with the gray or the gray gets in the white or any of that stuff. Don't sweat the small stuff. And once you learn to do that when you're painting, you'll be so much happier. You notice that I'm not totally filling in like the pattern. I'm not trying to make it perfect. Old bricks are not, they don't look perfect, right? They kind of look like you've skipped a little bit here and there. So don't be afraid to just kind of do whatever, you know. When you are done with this stencil, you need to wash it off right away. If you don't, you'll have a mess on your hands. I didn't wash this one time, and it took me 3 hours to clean the stencil. I would have just got a new one, but I didn't have any more stencils. I would have thrown it away. It took so long to clean it. But I learned my lesson, and now I do wash it right away. A good rule of thumb is if you take a 5-gallon bucket, put some soapy water in it, and just put your stencil in that and kind of wash it in that, and then just pour that stuff down like your toilet. I will caution you when you are using salt wash, if you have a lot of it, like residue on the stencil or on your trowel, you really don't want to wash it down your sink because it does harden and you could have issues. So that's just kind of a tip for the day on this. So I'm just going to go through, add a couple more colors, and then basically peel this stencil off and see where we're at. Now, the salt wash will take a few hours to dry. So, you know, you just kind of wait. We can't do any other steps until this is dry. We're going to do it on both sides, and it's kind of a hot mess, right? It's not even cute right now. But this is not what it's going to look like. So, on the top of this piece, there was a piece of vinyl. It was so ugly. A piece of vinyl was on the top of this piece. I peeled it off. That's where the wood is a different color. I am going to put a piece of decoupage on top of this. So in order to prep that, behind every decoupage paper, tissue paper, anything that I use, I always paint the surface white. You paint the surface white so that the decoupage paper really does show up. If you don't, then it will be dark. A lot of times it'll be way too dark and you'll kind of lose your design a little bit. So it just depends. It's your preference, but I always like to paint white behind before I put my decoupage or tissue paper down. So this is a redesign with Prima decoupage paper, and it's not actually paper. It's more like material. It's kind of like an interface kind of feel, so it is much thicker than any other tissue paper you reuse. I just really like the design. I thought it tied in with what I was trying to do. Now I did cut this paper a little bit big, and I did that on purpose. I wanted it to overlap because we will go ahead and fix that later. So we're going to put half of the medium down, and I am using a satin top coat. My favorite decoupage medium is Dixie Belle's Satin Clear Coat. What it does is it's a thicker clear coat, unlike any other that we use to seal tables with. And what it does is it allows you a little bit more time to work with the paper, with the decoupage fabric that you're using, anything like that. You can see it's kind of popping through, and that's what you want it to do. Then we're going to take and we're going to put a coat to seal the top. You see how it's opaque? That means it's wet. And we are just going to leave that. I cut it a little too big, and we're not going to trim it right now. We're not going to trim it till it is all the way 100% dry. And it will be dry when that is no longer an opaque purpley color. It'll be clear. This is also going to seal it and make it be permanent. So it's the next day and it's dry. I go ahead and run a piece of sandpaper along that edge right there, bada bing bada boom, and see how that's flapping up. That's how you get an actual clear, crisp line. Take your sandpaper, run it along the edge, it will cut that. This is why you don't cut it. You'll never get it to line up. But if you take a piece of sandpaper after it's dry, it'll give you a perfect edge every single time. Isn't that fun? That's what I love about this stuff. So just run your sandpaper on there and it'll peel it off. It's already sealed, it's already done. Now the bricks have dried overnight. See the cracks? That's because I used the all-in-one paint. If you just use a regular chalk paint, you won't get those cracks, which is fine. So use whatever you have, but I happen to have all-in-one paint, so I used it, and I love the cracks because it gives it a little more authentic feel. I'm just going to hit basically the rough spots with a piece of sandpaper just to get it so that it smooths it down just a touch. And so if you were to touch it, you're not going to like snag your hand or your clothes on it. So we're going to go ahead and mix up some more of that salt wash with the all-in-one paint. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add like old looking plaster. This is why I love this mini trowel. I will have, these are in stock too. I will have more in. If you'd like one, you can order it off my website. If it says out of stock, just send me a message and I'll get you one. These are awesome. They are made and designed by Would You Bend with their Posh Chalk line, and they're designed to do what we do. I've never found a mini trowel like this like at Home Depot. This is a cute little petite trowel. It's perfect. So we're kind of covering those bricks, making it look like, you know, there's some plastery look, and they're just kind of crumbly. They're just peeking through. So that's why I didn't really care about the color scheme that I used, because it covered most of it up. But you are going to be able to see the detail when we get done. We're going to let this dry now. So it's this piece was kind of like a process, right? A process of layers, because every day we had to let something dry, have to let it get hard so that way we can do something else. We can still work on other parts of the piece while that's happening, but we just wanted to make sure that it was dried all the way, because we're going to add finishes over the top with glaze and waxes and paint, and we just wanted to make sure that it was thoroughly dry. But it does just look like old now brick. It kind of ties it together. It tones it down a little bit. It's not like this weird brick thing just sitting there. Remember, painting is all about the layers, and the more layers you put on, the better it looks. So it's a fun thing. I love working with the stencils and the bricks and stuff. So we're going to put some of the same color on the front of those drawers. I'm not going to use the stencil for this. I'm just going to kind of just let the trowel skip over the top. Remember, when you're putting a trowel against another hard surface, it's going to skip over the top, which is a really fun painting technique, actually. So remember, this has salt wash in it. It's giving me some texture on the fronts of these drawers. This is a 4-drawer little rolling cabinet. We're going to let this all dry overnight and start up on it again in a few hours, or the next day, I guess. So once we've done that, we're going to go ahead and add some glaze. Now, glaze is going to sit inside of these little holes. Now, in hindsight, the glaze kind of wiped off a lot, and I probably could have done without this step and just did the wax instead. So if you want to skip this step, please do. Sometimes it works really well, and on this instant, it just didn't. My glaze really wasn't dark enough. I needed a darker brown glaze, and I'm using truffle glaze from Miss Lillian's. I do have glaze in stock. I am going to grab a dry microfiber towel, and I'm just going to wipe off. Now it deepened it a little bit, but it didn't really do a ton. Like, it helped, but it didn't like do what I wanted it to do. So I decided to let the glaze dry and then move on. I wanted the bottoms of the legs to be natural, because I'm going to put the perimeter of the top natural, meaning I'm going to stain it. So I'm just going to sand off the finish, and I'm going to stain that with DIY's Dark and Decrepit, which is a liquid patina on their line. It's the same thing as a gel stain. You could use any kind of gel stain. You could use a paint wash if you wanted to, but it does look better if you get down as much as you can with that current finish down to the raw wood. it's a beautiful way to just do that. I just use the sponge and go over the top. Now, the one thing I didn't film, which, you know, I filmed this video in each step, and I totally forgot to film when I blended in the blue. So all I did is I took a little bit of the original blue and kind of softened the edges. You see that on there? I didn't film it. I'm so sorry. I apologize. I did the whole thing and I went, uh-oh. I did it on the drawers and the sides. So we're going to go in with some dark wax. I am using DIY's dark wax. It's a dark brown wax. It's not black. Even though it kind of looks black on the video, it is a super dark espresso brown. It is my all-time favorite color wax, all time. We're going to take our microfiber and we're going to wipe it off. And what's this doing is giving us depth. So we went from this bright brick to like this more deeper, darker. We're going to a little bit darker to certain areas. Wax is meant to be wiped off. So you got to wipe it off. If not, it's too sticky and it takes forever to cure. So I'm going to barely just wipe it off a little bit just to keep that halo shadows. And now all of a sudden we're starting to come up with a deep look into like an old stone wall, right? An old stone wall on the side of this little cabinet. And we're just going to just barely wipe some off. The thing about the DIY wax, it's such a light wax that it doesn't take long for it to dry. So we're just going to continue. I'm just swirling it around so I can get inside of all those cracks. It's just supposed to look like a crumbling brick wall on the side of a little cabinet. I know. You get the idea though. So I had just taken some of the Stella Luna paint and just kind of swirled it around the outside to create a halo, which I did not film. So now I'm doing the same thing with some wax. Wax will seal this piece too. There will be no need to do anything else. Now the Miss Lillian's blue paint is also self-sealing, so it's great all-in-one. I didn't really have to clear coat or clear wax anything on there. So we will do this on all sides. So that way, when we will have the finished look, you will see that it just kind of all ties together. So adding the dark wax is always the last step for me, and it really does tie the piece together. It allows it to all of a sudden kind of jump off. It just kind of jumps off the screen. It all of a sudden goes from like, oh yeah, that's cute, to wow. It makes it romantic and deep and dark and old and aged with just the right amount of layers, right? Just the right amount of layers. So wipe off a little bit of that wax, and all of a sudden those drawers go from like super bright to wow. When this piece was done, the things tied together so well. It's just such a stunning little cabinet. And so my vision came true, and I really do appreciate you guys watching, following, subscribing. And if you need any supplies, just go to tonatransformations.com. I do carry 6 lines of paint. All the stuff that I use here I do carry online. And if it happens to be out of stock, just send me a personal message and I will see what we can do to help you out. Once again, my name is Debbie Tona. I own Tona Transformations in Nampa, Idaho. Thanks so much for watching, and as I say every time on every video, go out and be fabulous because there's no other way to be. Thanks for watching. You guys stay tuned. I got more stuff up my sleeve. We'll see y'all soon.